What if the most romantic movie of the 90s actually ended with a brutal abandonment and a drug overdose? Before it was the Cinderella story we all know, Julia Roberts' breakout hit was a gritty tragedy titled 3000, and the original ending will change how you see this classic forever. For over 3 decades, millions of viewers have swooned over Richard Gere climbing a fire escape with a bouquet of roses in his hand, overcoming his fear of heights to rescue his princess. We sing along in the bathtub, we cheer during the shopping spree on Rodeo Drive, and we bask in the warm, fuzzy glow of the ultimate Hollywood fairy tale. But beneath that multi-million-dollar veneer of glamour, high fashion, and pop music lies a dark, deeply unsettling truth. Pretty Woman was never supposed to be a romantic comedy. It was originally written as a devastating, low-budget cautionary tale about the grim reality of substance abuse, corporate greed, and human exploitation in the underbelly of Los Angeles. To understand how this radical shift happened, we have to travel back to the late 1980s. Hollywood was a different place, and screenwriters were struggling to capture the raw, unvarnished truth of a city divided by immense wealth and crushing poverty. J.F. Lawton was one of those struggling screenwriters. He was living in a cheap apartment, trying to make a name for himself, and had spent years writing silly comedies and ninja action movies that went absolutely nowhere. Frustrated by the lack of attention, Lawton decided to pivot. He wanted to write something serious, something artistic and dramatic that would force the industry to take him seriously as a writer. He looked out his window at the streets of Los Angeles, specifically Hollywood Boulevard, which in the late 80s was not the tourist destination it is today. It was a gritty, dangerous strip populated by runaways, drug dealers, and sex workers struggling to survive. Lawton took inspiration from this bleak environment and wrote a screenplay originally titled 3000. The title did not refer to some romantic fantasy or a symbolic number of days. It was simply the cold, transactional price tag, $3,000, the exact amount of money a wealthy, ruthless businessman agreed to pay a desperate, drug-addicted sex worker to spend a single week with him. This script was designed to be a harsh, uncompromising critique of capitalistic greed and the commodification of human beings. There were no musical montages, no friendly hotel managers looking out for the protagonist, and absolutely no happy endings. But wait, because what happened next is where this story takes a truly bizarre, high-stakes corporate turn. Just 3 days after a young, relatively unknown Julia Roberts landed her dream role in this gritty indie drama, the production company went completely bankrupt. The movie was dead. But when the script was resurrected, the new owners didn't just want to change the ending. They wanted to erase Vivian's tragic fate entirely, because the original script contained a scene so dark that the studio feared it would destroy Julia Roberts' career before it even started, involving a horrific tragedy that almost changed the face of 90s cinema forever. To understand how shocking that original ending truly was, we have to look closely at the characters J.F. Lawton actually wrote. In the original script of 3000, the character of Edward Lewis, played in the final film by a suave and charming Richard Gere, was not a misunderstood prince searching for his soul. He was a borderline sociopathic corporate raider. He was cold, calculated, and emotionally hollow, viewing people as assets to be liquidized or toys to be bought and discarded. When he met Vivian, he did not see a quirky, charming young woman who just needed a break. He saw a temporary possession that he could control completely. Vivian, played by a then-unknown Julia Roberts, was also a far cry from the bubbly, clean-cut character we love today. In 3000, Vivian was a hardened, desperate crack cocaine addict. Her teeth were not perfectly white. She did not floss them religiously. Her eyes were described in the script as blank and empty, reflecting the trauma of her everyday survival. The agreement between Edward and Vivian was not a playful arrangement, but a strict, clinical contract. One of the most critical, horrifying stipulations of their deal was that Vivian was strictly forbidden from using drugs during her week in Edward's hotel suite. For Vivian, the week was not a magical escape into high society, but an agonizing, week-long battle against physical withdrawal, locked in a luxurious penthouse with a man who treated her like dirt. In the original draft, the class divide was not a source of lighthearted comedy, but a weapon used to humiliate her at every turn. When she was kicked out of the boutique on Rodeo Drive, there was no triumphant return to tell the saleswomen they made a big mistake. Instead, it was a brutal, crushing reminder that she did not belong in their world and never would. This brings us directly to the shocking original ending that Julia Roberts herself has detailed in interviews. In the script for 3000, the week ends, the contract is up, and it is time for Vivian to leave. There is no romantic epiphany, no realization of true love. Edward simply packs his bags and prepares to return to New York. Vivian is forced to pack her cheap plastic bags. They get into the limousine one last time, but instead of a tender farewell, a massive argument erupts in the car. Edward, reverting completely to his cold, transactional nature, stops the vehicle in a dirty, grimy Los Angeles side street. He demands that she get out. When she hesitates, he violently pushes her out of the car. As Vivian lies in the dirty alleyway, bruised and degraded, Edward rolls down the window and throws the $3,000 in cash right on top of her body. The crumpled bills scatter over her in the dirt. Edward's limousine speeds away, leaving her abandoned in the trash, and the credits roll. But it gets even darker. Former Disney studio executive Jeffrey Katzenberg later revealed that in one of the earliest development stages of the script, Vivian's story ended in the ultimate tragedy. She actually died of a drug overdose. In another draft written by Lawton, Vivian and her best friend, Kit DeLuca, take the $3,000 and use it to fund a trip to Disneyland, fulfilling Vivian's childhood dream. But the tone is completely hollow. The script ends with Vivian sitting on a bus to Disneyland, staring out the window with blank, lifeless eyes, hopelessly trapped in her cycle of addiction, with her friend Kit dying of a drug overdose shortly after. It was an uncompromising look at the cycle of poverty and drug abuse, completely devoid of hope. So, how did this grim indie tragedy transform into the ultimate feel-good cinematic masterpiece? The answer lies in a corporate buyout and a massive clash of creative visions. When Vestron Pictures, the original production company, went bankrupt, the rights to 3000 were put up for sale. In a twist of fate, Disney bought the script. They intended to produce it through their adult-oriented Touchstone Pictures banner. But Disney executives, specifically Jeffrey Katzenberg, realized that a movie about a crack-addicted sex worker dying in an alley was not going to sell movie tickets or fit the studio's brand. They needed a massive rewrite. They brought in director Garry Marshall, a legendary television creator known for light-hearted, wholesome hits like Happy Days and Mork and Mindy. Marshall looked at the script and saw something that no one else did, a modern-day fairy tale. He decided to strip away the grit, the addiction, and the dark reality of the streets, and replace it with romance and comedy. The title was changed from the transactional 3000 to the alluring Pretty Woman, named after the iconic Roy Orbison song. Marshall and a team of writers slowly chipped away at the darkness. Vivian's crack addiction was completely erased, replaced by a harmless, charming habit of flossing her teeth. Edward's cold, abusive tendencies were softened into the classic trope of an emotionally guarded wealthy bachelor who just needed to learn how to love again. The shopping spree on Rodeo Drive, which was originally a depressing display of class humiliation, was transformed into an empowering, triumphant fantasy of consumerism. They were writing and rewriting the script daily on set, transforming a tragedy into a romance in real time. This radical sanitization of Pretty Woman is not an isolated incident in Hollywood history. It is a prime example of a recurring phenomenon where raw, uncomfortable truths are polished for mass consumption. We see this exact same corporate alchemy in other classic films. Take, for instance, the classic movie First Blood. In the original novel, John Rambo is a violent, deeply traumatized veteran who goes on a murderous rampage and is ultimately killed at the end. Hollywood changed the ending, kept him alive, and turned him into an action hero franchise. Similarly, in the original script for Disney's Toy Story, Woody was written as a cynical, tyrannical jerk who intentionally threw Buzz Lightyear out a window. It was only after intense rewrites that he became the lovable, loyal cowboy we know today. In the case of Pretty Woman, this corporate polishing worked wonders at the box office, grossing over $463 million worldwide. It catapulted Julia Roberts into global superstardom and established her as the queen of romantic comedies. But it also created a highly controversial legacy. By replacing a tragic, realistic depiction of sex work and drug addiction with a glossy Cinderella fantasy, Hollywood effectively romanticized a dangerous and exploitative reality, leaving audiences to believe that a knight in shining armor on Hollywood Boulevard is just a limousine ride away. Ultimately, the lost, dark ending of 3000 remains a ghost haunting the cheerful, polished veneer of Pretty Woman. It forces us to ask ourselves, are we watching a story about love, or are we watching a highly calculated corporate illusion designed to make us forget the harsh realities of the world? The next time you watch Julia Roberts smiling in the bathtub or Richard Gere climbing that fire escape, remember the dark alleyway, the crumpled $3,000, and the tragic ending that almost was. If you think this kind of dramatic behind-the-scenes transformation is wild, you will not believe what another major studio did to rewrite the ending of one of the most famous psychological thrillers of the 90s. Click on the video on your screen right now to uncover the shocking, deleted climax that the studio fought to keep hidden from the world. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden history of cinema.